So I know I've been kind of like avoiding the main question of today's video for quite some time. Here's the deal. If I had to sell one of the trucks, here's what would kind of happen. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we are finally gonna be capping off the Raptor versus TRX series. So this video is basically going to be all about which truck you should buy. Which truck would I recommend for you to buy? And I guess I should also mention on a side note, I will make some comparisons in the future, but this is gonna be probably the most important video in the series, and I've waited to make this video because I need to think about this for a long time, because I understand after I post this video, this is gonna sway people one way or the other, and I need to make sure that I'm telling you guys the choice that's the right choice between the two trucks. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a lot of pressure with this video, so let's get into it. So on a quick side note, sorry about the lighting in today's video. It is like the middle of the afternoon, and this is the only time I have time to film this video. So yeah, sorry about that. But let's get into the first thing, which pertains to the looks of the trucks. Now, whether you like to admit it or not, when you're spending $95,000 or $83,000 on a pickup truck, you're gonna want it to look sexy, because that's a lot of money to spend on a truck. Let's start with the TRX. So I think there's some really cool elements on the TRX, right? The hood scoop, the venting, the fenders that are super wide. You've got the oversized fender flares, obviously 35s from the factory. And you know, overall, I think the truck looks absolutely fantastic, but I will say that a stock TRX without the rack like I have and without aftermarket bumpers like I have looks so similar to a Ram Rebel that it's a little bit disappointing, and it does kind of depreciate the looks of the truck. And I understand looks are subjective, but that's my personal opinion. If you see a stock TRX that has no rack or anything, you know, you might mistake it for a Rebel, and I don't think it looks all that good. But, you know, with these aftermarket bumpers that I've added, with the lights at the top of the rack and all that stuff, I think it's a really good looking truck, and people never mistake my truck for a Rebel. Like when people see this truck and they see, like, you know, the Bilstein shocks popping out here at the bottom, like they know that this truck means business. Now, moving on from the TRX to the Raptor, the thing about the Gen 3 Raptor is it's got a lot of controversy over these things right here. So the Gen 2 have these beautiful wide fenders, right? And the TRX does the same thing. But the Gen 3 has gone for oversized fender flares that look kind of weird, and then smaller fenders. And you can see same thing in the rear. I mean, look at the difference with the trucks. Like the TRX just pops out, and you know, the lines aren't as sharp as the Raptor, so it's kind of more rounded off. But the Raptor doesn't have, you know, the big hips that it used to have. And so a lot of people haven't liked the looks of the Gen 3 as much as the Gen 2. Here's what I'd have to say, this is my personal opinion. I think that the center venting here, I think that looks better than what the Gen 2 has. I think this whole front end looks better, like the marker lights, the grille, the lights. The bumper is pretty much the same, so that's not a huge change. But when you look at it from a front end perspective, I think it looks better. But once you pop here to like the 3/4 angle or the side, it, you know, I think it looks great, but I think the Gen 2 definitely looks a little bit better. And I guess we'll quickly pop to the rears of both of the trucks so that we can show this stuff. I totally almost slipped there. So rear of the Raptor, rear of the TRX. I think the Raptor, and this is just, again, subjective, I think the Raptor looks a little bit better because of the giant Ford logo here and how it kind of like breaks things up from a color perspective, right? Because my truck is, I've got the green wrap on it, and so you have the green to the gray, and so, you know, there's a little bit of contrast, whereas with the TRX, we just have the little Ram logo. I did debadge my truck. It does have like a TRX logo, but I don't know, I thought it was kind of gimmicky, so I took it off, coming from the person that likes the giant Ford logo. But anyways, from a rear perspective, and especially dead on with the TRX, like look, sorry about the lighting again, but that looks just like a Rebel, right? Whereas this, you know, is kind of distinctive. So I know I spend a lot of time on looks, but again, when people are buying these trucks, it's very important. So I guess if I were to pick a winner, I would say that overall, I think the Raptor looks slightly better in stock format, but I think with some tasteful mods, the TRX can look just as good as the Raptor. Okay, so now the next thing that I don't want to spend as much time on is the interiors of both the trucks. So starting here with the TRX, they've gone for a luxury car appearance with the interior. You've got tons of leather, you've got Alcantara, you've got carbon fiber, and mine has the red stitching package, and you know, full-blown luxury vehicle. Like you can see the seats too. Again, really nice leather. You've got beautiful leather over the dash. You've got leather here on the steering wheel with Alcantara, and you know, with the gauges, you've got the screen in the center and then the analog gauges on either side. And then we've got the giant 12-inch infotainment system. And, you know, overall, the interior is very user-friendly in terms of all the controls and everything. Like, you can see the, you know, cruise controls here on the steering wheel and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's pretty simple and easy, you know, from a user perspective. And again, it gives you that luxury feel. Like when you're in the TRX, you feel like you're in an upscale luxury vehicle. My only thing that I have as like a gripe with the TRX is just the paddle shifters. They have this weird like split thing where you can see it's like split in the middle. And so they just, I don't know, they don't feel all that cool. I've gotten used to it, but I wish the paddles were a little bit bigger. And I've got like just over 11,000 miles on this truck now, and the interior is actually held up very well because obviously I've done a ton of off-roading with it and everything. So I guess that's another plus. But yeah, that's the thing with the TRX is you get a luxury car experience here with the interior. Now, popping over here to the Raptor, it has a completely different feeling. So with the Raptor, obviously, material use isn't nearly as nice as the TRX, and you can see with the seats, but this has a sportier feel to it, and it has a techier feel because it's got the full digital gauge cluster. You've got the horizontal screen, which I actually prefer the horizontal screen in terms of the appearance. Both infotainment systems are just as easy to use, but this whole setup, I feel like looks a little bit better in my personal opinion. And same thing with the TRX, it's just as user-friendly with all the controls, but it does have the paddles that definitely feel nicer and look a little bit nicer. And then I guess another benefit with the Raptor is both the trucks have very customizable drive modes, but the Raptor you can customize the exhaust, the suspension, and the steering here on the steering wheel, which the TRX doesn't have, so that is a little bit of a benefit. But main focus is just like the interior feel here with the Raptor. It has a sporty feel, it has like a modern techie feel, but it doesn't feel like a luxury vehicle. Material use just isn't there, right? You've got nice leather here on the steering wheel, but you can see the material use here on the dash and just the overall layout and everything. They went for, you know, the sporty side of things. So if you want a more luxury feel, TRX. If you want a sportier, techier feel, the Raptor gives you that. Now let's go over the power and performance with both of the trucks. So with the Raptor, we've got the twin turbo EcoBoost V6, goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission, good for 450 horsepower and then 510 pound-feet of torque. And then over on the TRX, right, we've got the Hellcat engine. It's a supercharged 6.2 liter V8. Goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 702 horsepower and then 650 pound-feet of torque. You can see it down there at the bottom. So TRX has more power, more torque. It is crazy. I mean, you can just smoke anything. Like you pull up next to something at a light, whether it's, you know, an import or a muscle car, and you'll just destroy it if you want. So yeah, it's a ton of fun on road. The Raptor, on the other hand, isn't crazy fast, but it's fast enough. And here's what I have to say is the Raptor's power is actually usable in a lot of circumstances. Like you can actually, you know, go full throttle and you're not going to be going way over the speed limit. Whereas with the TRX, there's only a few occasions where you can go full throttle and you're not going to be like over the speed limit, you know, interstate, for example. So the TRX has a ton of power, it's a ton of fun, but it's only usable in certain circumstances, whereas the Raptor, even though it doesn't have nearly as much power, the power is more usable in some more circumstances. But I don't want to downplay the TRX because it is so much fun and it's hilarious every single time, you know, like pull up next to like a Corvette or something and you just destroy it and they question their purchasing decision. So yeah, and then I guess I should mention fuel economy. I've been averaging like mid-13s with this TRX, like 9 miles per gallon. And then this has a 36-gallon fuel tank, whereas that is a 33-gallon fuel tank. So the TRX not only gets worse fuel economy, but then has a smaller fuel tank. So you have to fill up all the time, whereas with the Raptor, you don't have to fill up nearly as often. The next thing I want to talk about that's going to be probably the most controversial is going to be the tire and wheel setup, and then also the shocks and suspension. We'll start with the tires and wheels. So the TRX can only have 35s from the factory mounted on 18-inch wheels. I think they do great. They get great grip. They look fantastic. You can put 37s on your TRX, but I wouldn't recommend off-roading your truck if you do put 37s because you will constantly collide with the wheel well and you'll end up breaking stuff over time. Whereas on the Raptor, we got 17-inch wheels, so the wheels are an inch smaller, and then you can get 35s or 37s. My truck has the 37 performance package, and I think that they look fantastic. But I mean, when you see them next to each other, like they both just look like beefy off-road tires. And so from an aesthetic perspective, right, it's whatever. But I will say there is a difference in performance. So with the Gen 3 Raptor and the 37s, this doesn't feel as quick as like a Gen 2 with 35s or a Gen 3 with 35s. There is a slight speed difference. And the other thing to mention is these tires, the 37s, do have obviously a little bit more sidewall, and so dampening on this truck is fantastic. And I noticed a big difference between these two trucks off-road. I did have the Raptor at slightly lower PSI, but it was a negligible amount. It was like 1 or 2 PSI less than what the TRX was at. And with the Raptor, it was just butter smooth over everything, whereas with the TRX, right, you could still feel some of the bumps and everything, and part of that, right, has to do with the shocks. So we've got the Bilstein shocks on the TRX. It's an active system. I think it's fantastic. It's very smooth on-road, and it can absorb very large bumps and everything off-road, whereas on the Raptor, and I don't know if we're gonna be able to see it as well because I don't have high ground clearance bumper, you got the new live valve from Fox with the Raptor, and same thing, very smooth on road. But like I said, I feel like this whole setup just absorbs things a little bit better off-road. That's what I noticed when I drove both these trucks back to back in the off-road comparison, is the Raptor was just smoother, and I was able to drive it faster because it was smoother. And the other thing I noticed with the suspension and shock system is because the TRX weighs more, when you like go over big bumps and everything, there's like a big rebound. Whereas with the Raptor, because it's lighter and all that kind of stuff, there's less of a rebound. And so when you go over stuff with the TRX, it kind of is more exciting because you kind of like hop almost over a lot of stuff. Whereas with the Raptor, it's just kind of like just drives over it. So I guess if you're more of a serious Baja driver, the Raptor is going to be the option to go for because it feels like it can handle just a little bit more, and just with how it handles, right? It just goes over stuff, whereas this is kind of, you know, going all over the place, but there is an excitement factor to that. Cap things off with this segment in the video about the shocks and all that fun stuff. Here's what I'd have to say is I feel like these trucks are pretty much equal from a shock perspective and all that. We obviously have the new 5-link coil in the Raptor, again, with the live valve, and then the TRX has 5-link coil as well, and it's got the Bilstein shocks. And both the systems are amazing. On road, they both feel like full-blown luxury vehicles. When you go over bumps and everything, doesn't upset either of the trucks. You do feel a little bit more on the TRX, like I said, than what you feel in the Raptor. But overall, super close. And I guess, you know, again, on paper the Raptor is technically better because with 37s it has more ground clearance than the TRX and the same amount of travel, and then if you put 35s on the Raptor, it has more travel and still a little bit more ground clearance than the TRX. So again, on paper, the TRX is technically a little bit better from an off-road performance perspective. But in terms of what you actually feel when you're driving both these trucks, is they're both just crazy. Like, they can handle so much, and they can handle so much more than what the average person can actually drive at. Like, if you buy either of these trucks and take them off-road, it's gonna take quite a bit of time for you to get to the limit of either of these trucks. So you can't go wrong either way from that perspective, I feel like. So I just realized that I didn't talk about towing capacities or payloads or anything like that, and they are trucks, so they're technically supposed to be able to do that stuff. So here's all you need to know. The Raptor has a slightly higher payload capacity, a slightly higher towing capacity than the TRX. I know it sounds crazy because the TRX has so much more horsepower, but that engine weighs quite a bit, so that does kind of lower the payload capacity a little bit. And basically, when Ford released this new Raptor, they just wanted to slightly beat the TRX in terms of the towing figure. So 1,300 pounds of payload. This has like 1,000 because of the rack and the tire carrier and the bed decrease the payload on this particular truck. And then towing capacity, they're both around 8,000 pounds roughly. So they can do some truck stuff, but that's not what they're meant for. I feel like we went over the key points with both of the trucks, from the exterior to the interior to the performance to the on-road and off-road performance with the shocks and tires, and then obviously, you know, the capability of both of the trucks. And so as you can see, they're, you know, pretty evenly matched with everything. There's some slight differences that will appeal to different groups, right? Again, like I said with the Raptor, if you want a lighter weight, sportier feeling truck that is, you know, still a pickup truck, but it feels more like a sports car, then that's where the Raptor will kind of apply to you. Whereas with the TRX, if you want something that feels more like a luxury car from an interior perspective, and then from a driving perspective, feels more like just a brute strength muscle car, then you're gonna like the TRX more. And obviously the TRX has a big benefit with the sound from the Hellcat powertrain, right? You can't beat the V8 sounds you get out of the TRX. I think the Raptor with the new trombone exhaust sounds fantastic, but again, it's still not a V8. So I know I've been kind of like avoiding the main question of today's video for quite some time. Here's the deal. If I had to sell one of the trucks, here's what would kind of happen. I think it would be the Raptor. I know that sounds crazy because right now I'm actually daily driving the Raptor. I drive the Raptor more than the TRX and I have tons of fun with it on road. And I've said in multiple videos that I feel like the Raptor is more capable than the TRX off road. But the Raptor is missing this slight emotional part of it that the TRX has. Like I said, the Raptor is an absolute blast to drive. But when I took both the trucks off-road and I did that off-road comparison and the Raptor beat the TRX around the off-road racetrack, I thought that, you know, after experiencing all of that and after experiencing the Raptor being smoother from a suspension standpoint and being able to handle more and just being a better Baja truck, I thought that I would like the Raptor more. But after driving both of those trucks off-road all day, I had a choice of which truck I was going to drive home. And I picked the TRX. And I thought about this for literally like the last month. Why did I pick the TRX to drive home? Because I could have driven either truck home. And I realized it was because the TRX has this like emotional aspect because of the powertrain, because of everything that's going for it, that the Raptor just doesn't have. And I wanted a little bit more of the TRX. And I think like if I had to own both of these trucks for the next decade, you know, or sorry, one of the trucks for the next decade rather, I think it would be the TRX because like it has like the special, what do people say, the special sauce to it. It just has this like special element to it. But again, I will say the Raptor has more aftermarket support if you're an off-road enthusiast. I feel like it can handle more. And you know, for like the average person, I feel like the Raptor's a little bit more well-rounded because it gets good fuel economy, has good range, it has tons of off-road capability. It's less expensive than the TRX. But again, it doesn't have like that emotional thing that the TRX has. Now, before I officially end today's video, the last thing that I want to mention as a key point is I'm not planning on selling either of the trucks. And I think that also should be taken into account with showing how like evenly matched both the trucks are. Because if the TRX was way better than the Raptor, if the Raptor was way better than the TRX, then I would sell one of the trucks, right? But since they're so evenly matched and I like them both for different reasons, I'm keeping both of them. And so I think that that should also be taken into account if you're cross-shopping both these trucks, is just understand that they are both amazingly capable. They're both so much fun. They both look amazing. Like they're the coolest trucks on the planet, in my personal opinion. And so like, you can't go wrong either way. And I know that's a cop-out because people say that all the time, but it's true. You can't go wrong either way. What I'd recommend is if you have access to drive both of them, I would drive both of them and you'll find which one you like a little bit more for your personal taste, and then just go with that one. Don't look back and you won't regret it. Also, that's gonna sum things up for today's video. I will see all of you guys in the next video.